Welcome to the Plant Cunning Podcast,
where we explore a relationship to plants, other people, and the mysteries of nature.
Coming to you from the high Allegheny Plateau in central New York.
We are your hosts, A.C. Stauble
and Isaac Hill.
Okay, so today on the Plant Cunning Podcast, we have Josh Williams, and Josh is an herbalist, an author, an educator. He's written 2 books for Aeon, The Green Art with an E, and a book on plant spirits, plant spirit herbalism. So how are you today, Josh? How you doing?
I'm very well, enjoying the spring. I'm very excited that all the plants here in the high desert are finally waking up, and we've had some extra rain, which has been really nice. Been some rainy days, but this, of course, May, of course, is my favorite month of the year. I love this time of year for so many reasons. The plants, the folklore, the warmer days and warmer nights. So I'm happy. I'm loving it. How are you guys?
Good. Yeah. The spring ephemerals are coming up here in central New York. And where exactly are you in the high desert?
I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Cool. Sweet.
Downtown in the city.
In the city? Yeah, I love Salt Lake. Awesome. Yeah, so we're doing good. It's been raining a lot the last few days, like 5 days, and the plants are just like tripling in size, and the trout lilies and the trillium and the violets and tulips. I mean, it's just like such a show, you know?
Yeah. The ramps are almost done, actually.
Gosh, they went so fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Not a plant that we have here, but always a plant I love to see when I'm on your neck of the woods.
Yeah. So curious, like what is coming up right now? Like what's waking up that you're stoked about?
So in my garden, like over the last 10 days, all of our Valerian stands have come back, and I've just kind of been letting them cook for, I don't know, we're probably on 5 years now. And
Nice.
I think this is the year that I'm going to cut some of the roots out.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me. I get so excited when they just get bigger and bigger. All of our Gojis woke up. We have massive Goji stands in our gardens, and they are just super, super happy this year. So hopefully we'll get a good yield.
Cool.
And of course, harvested a bunch of cleavers yesterday.
Nice.
And who else is back? All the marshmallows coming back. And
Cool.
of course, right on schedule, all of our hawthorn blossomed. And we have some Hagus monogina, some English hawthorn here. Nope, they grow no problem. But our urban forestry department has 2 trees that they love to plant, and one of them is linden. We have more linden in the city than I can even fathom. We should probably rename the city to something linden related.
Cool.
We also have a Crataegus washingtonii, a Washington native hawthorn that thrives here, and we just get so much. They're very, very happy. So all of our hawthorns are blossoming, which to me signals that it's party time. It's like in the bright half of the year, and the plants are back, and that's how I know it's time. So
we made it. We survived the winter. It's official.
Just very barely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a hard one.
Yeah.
Our hawthorns are almost ready to blossom. There's a few species here. They grow wild out here. There's a lot. So we're very happy. You know, that's good. Probably by the time when we release this episode, they'll be in full bloom.
Sweet. I love it. It's something I look forward to seeing them every year. It's a big deal. Our first tree to wake up generally is Liancheng, the forsythia. We have a ton of it. People plant those like crazy here for ornamental, for landscaping, just because they're so beautiful, and we get this incredible sort of pops of yellow really early, like about the same time that the crocus is coming up. And then kind of once the forsythia wakes up, you know, okay, any moment now, all the other plants are going to come back. So there's a good color show happening right now.
It's like a giant yellow flag, like waving, like, all right, spring's coming. Everybody get ready. Sharpen your scythe.
Your hoary.
Your hoary.
Yep, the hory's out.
Yeah. So I love that we just like immediately dove into plants, but we do have a traditional first question, which is how did you come to the plant path?
Oh boy, that's a fun story. So
cool.
I was introduced to working with plants at all by my grandparents, who always kept an incredible garden, mostly vegetables, but my grandfather also loved flowers. He was very good at growing and tending to flowers. And so I was lucky enough to be raised, around people who gardened and tended seeds, and we grew a lot of food. And from there, and in kind of a disconnected way, I wish that it was intentional, but it was not. When I was about 13, I encountered, like so many people, I encountered Scott Cunningham, and my foray into plants, being who plants are, came from him. Started out with the folkloric, the magical, the ritual, and from Scott, I met my first teacher, which is Paul Byrell. And Paul's books pretty much ruined me for life. Like, they just made it impossible for me to participate in the world in any different way than I do now. He woke something up in me and gave me something that still I think is one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced. So from there, it wasn't until my late teens that I started thinking about plants in terms of their medicinal virtues. And that was because I had gone through a few things and really just wasn't enjoying my experience in the allopathic medical complex, right? It just wasn't working for me. So I did try, I tried and tried and tried, and I just didn't get where I wanted to get and where I knew I could get. So that's where the medicinal study came from, and was lucky enough to continue studying with Paul and just get involved with it. At that time, I mean, this is 26 years ago. There were books, but they were hard to find. There were certainly nobody here in Salt Lake practicing. We have a pretty well-known elder American herbalist, Stephen Horn, who's here, but he's very far south of me. So unfortunately, that wasn't a thing. But from there, it's just taken off, and it is an all-consuming obsession. And anyone that knows me will tell you that it's pretty much all I want to talk about, and is really all I care to talk about. So yeah, so I came into it a little backwards, I think, from a lot of people who come into herbalism through herbal medicine, and then they start to have these experiences where they say, oh, there's something happening when I work with these plants on the physical level that I can't put my finger on. Something's unfolding, synchronicities are happening, something's bubbling up inside of me. And then maybe the other part of plant work comes in, but I was the opposite. I came in learning very quickly that plants are people, plants are kin, that they are allies in transformation. And that led to sort of my first realization of how I wanted to do this work, which is to go back to our ancestral perspectives of herbalism before we erected this fake partition separating the magical from the medicinal, because that's not real. And we've only been doing it for a short time, maybe about 150 years in the West, where we've created these medical systems where there are supremacy structures that are then looking down on, animist, magical, ritual traditions of medicine and healing. So it's new and it's a drop in the bucket, and I don't think we should do it anymore. I think we should just, I think we should just embrace that the plants bring virtues that are both magical and medicinal. And I think if anyone's like me, when healing happens on any level, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, in your life, out in your life path somewhere, I don't care whether it's medicinal or magical. I care that I got the harmony that I needed. So that's been my banner to fly this whole time.
Oh my God, I love that so much. Yeah. It's funny when you said that you like just want to talk about plants and that's like your major passion. Like, it made me just think about how excited we've been to interview you, because I think you're just so aligned with like the plant cunning niches. There's a few niches of the plant cunning podcast, but I think as like an animistic herbalist and educator and coming from that magical side, it's just so exciting to be able to like chat about that and relate. And I know on the podcast before we've talked about animism, but can you just tell us a little bit from your perspective, like what animism means to you and like what the plants having spirit, like just elaborate on that and just to, hear from your perspective about that side of the plant work.
Sure. I mean, I'm always happy to get a platform for this because I think this perspective will save the world, really. And I don't mean that lightly. I mean that like this way of thinking, in my opinion, is the way of thinking that will heal our collective wounds, and help us do better moving forward. So I will never be able to define or describe animism better than Graham Harvey, right? Who says that animism is the experience of living in a world filled with persons. Only some of them are human. All of them deserve our respect, or I might say all of them were capable of kinship or intentional relationship with all of them, right? And this is a magical thing because everyone has this in their bones. We all started out as kids who could go out into the backyard or wander into a park, or some folks had forests that they could play in, experiencing some degree of otherness. Kids, we would call it make believe or imagining things, but kids are always in this really squishy adaptive place where they kind of can walk out into the world and welcome the fact that anything is possible. And we lose that for whatever reason. And I think that animism for me is an experience, right, of choosing to go out into the world and experience that I'm not the only person in the room. I'm not the most important person in the room. And that that all of this is not here for me. And this is the disease of contemporary, especially contemporary Western society, is human exceptionalism, right? That we think, all of this is here for me. This is all the gold and the land, the oil, that's all mine. That's all here to serve humans. And unfortunately, we have spiritual traditions that tell people that's the case. So they act on that with spiritual authority. It's like, yikes.
It says it in this book.
Yeah.
It says right here.
Yeah.
But this is a particularly important in our work with plants because I think plants really get denigrated to this role more than any other non-human person. That like
True.
plants are here for us. We can do whatever we want. They're here to give us food and fuel and fiber and shelter and beauty and inspiration. And if they're not here serving the human narrative, then what good are they, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, animism is the experience of confronting otherness when we're with plants, that we are confronting the fact that everything we see in a plant, everything we smell, everything we touch and taste, and all of the feelings that bubble up inside of us, the plant in their own way is seeing us in return. That we are seen as much as we see, that we're not the only viewer, right? And so I like to follow Graham Harvey's guidance and not look at animism as an ism, which we tend to do, it's not a belief system or a practice or a ritual, although I have developed practices and rituals to help people align to an animist experience, but it's an experience, right? It's just a way of experiencing the world. So to me, the kind of way that I do herbalism, the kind of way that I practice the plant spirit path would not work at all if I experienced plants as things, as tools, as commodities, as resources. The whole thing, my medicine would probably be still very effective because I am trained in traditional and classic Chinese medicine and Western vitalist herbalism. I make good formulas, but the magic would not be there. And that's what I care the most about. So long story short,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that person to person relationship between those of us in the human perspective of things and those in the plant perspective of things is what makes it work. The kinship is what makes it happen. The friendship, the relationship, the engagement with sacred reciprocity through the hedge that separates our two worlds. That's what takes this from reductionist, this herb is good for this disease, allopathic herbalism, to the practice of herbalism, right? That's for me, like that's the big leap. And everybody can do it. It's not a big leap because we've all done it before, right? It's nothing new.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So glad I asked.
yeah, and it's such a it really is, even with the veneer of the Western reductionist mentality, it's there. It is in our bones, as you said. It's and we get it educated out of us sometimes. But it's still there. It's still there. Just relating with the plants, with all these beings as beings. Yeah.
Mm.
And I'm really interested in what you were talking about a little bit earlier too, about how there's not a difference between the medicine and the magic. How do you see that differentiation between magic and medicine, and then the where that imaginary line breaks down?
So this is a very good question. Something I don't get to talk about very often. So I appreciate this question. And I think hopefully it'll take us on a cool little side quest, right? Plants are, at least in my experience, I don't like to blanket term what plants think or do, but in my experience, plants are constantly affirming their investment in the creation of harmony, right? That they are always, I think about one of my favorite philosophers, a Sicilian philosopher, Empedocles, who talked about the entire world being sort of fueled by the tension between two forces, which are love and strife, or we might call harmony and chaos, right? Or love and hate, if you want. You can kind of break that down. Plants are always trying to nudge the world further and further into states of harmony. They're always trying to do beauty. They're always trying to bring things together in a pleasing way, which, by the way, is the definition of the root word of cosmos, right? Which is where we also get our word cosmetic. It means things fitting together with ease and in a pleasing way. This is the way of plants. They just want everything to have that beautiful cyclical flow. Not to say there won't be windstorms and there won't be heavy snow that breaks branches, but that we handle all that with some beauty, with some grace, and we see it for what it is. So in my experience, magic and medicine are both just rituals of transformation. They're both just ways that we take something that is currently in a disharmonious state and try to move it into a harmonious state. So that could be a sluggish liver. It could be somebody's relationship with money. It could be somebody's sense and experience of being safe in the world and protected and belonging. It could be somebody's next step on their personal spiritual development. It doesn't matter. So when I realized that it doesn't matter and that plants will show up wherever there's disharmony, bring the full sort of constellation of whatever their virtues might be to try to help us do what they do, which is create more harmony. That's when I realized this differentiation, this fact that you can go on any bookstore. I guess if you have a cool bookstore where you live, or online, right, to that place online where we buy books. And there are books on magical herbalism, herb magic, and then there are books on herbal medicine, but they're always two different books. I just really never could figure out why. Because again, when we go back even just a century or so, we see that practitioners of folk healing didn't see a difference between the two. The process of making a compress for somebody's broken leg and then involving a charm or an invocation to a deity or some kind of an oblation to the ancestors was the medicine. So they didn't distinguish, they didn't comb through, this is magical and this is medicinal and they need to be two different things. We did that. We did that as a way to make the medical less accessible to people who were not in privileged situations, and at the same time to turn the folkloric into savagery, right? To say these are uneducated people, they're backwards, they haven't embraced the new ways or the new religion or the new way of thinking. So there was an intentional building of this wall, on at least on some level, in my opinion. So it doesn't matter how we engage. In clinic, I'm just as likely to have someone go sit with a plant and breathe with a plant and work with a plant, which we might call it herb magic, as I am to compound and give them a tincture or a tea, which they would take internally, which we would call herbal medicine. Both of them go exactly the same place, which is we receive the blessings of the plant in support of the cultivation of harmony, right? So it doesn't matter. And I think it takes more energy to hold that wall up than it does to just like let it go and just say, yeah, I can let some of these ancestral charms work their way into my clinical herbal practice. Why not?
Yeah.
I can let the making of herbal medicine work its way into my spiritual engagement with plants. Why not? I can consider the various physical functions of my body as seats of emotions and energetic patterns, which really start moving into that combination of the energetic or spiritual herbalism and the mundane herbalism. Why not? And when people do that, when people allow themselves to just like pull that blinder off, then herbalism happens, right? Like in the way that I think it just becomes whole. So it's very important to me, very important to me. And we all have to, you got to do work to get there. It's not just like, today I'm choosing. You have to comb through the conditioning that we have. But again, just like we talked about with the animism, it's in there, right?
Yeah.
Even as kids, we all lived in a world where the magic and the mundane were very squishy and there was a lot of overlap. So we have the muscle memory. It comes back, it floods back to people.
Yeah. And I think all throughout the world, people do things that a Western person might call magic, but it's just part of their everyday life. They don't call it magic,
Yeah.
you know, and that's something that we don't see embedded in this industrialized culture where we're trained to think of things as magic, and magic, superstition, not good. Science, these, particular constituents, that is good. You know, but in for most of humanity, through most of history, people are just doing what we would call magic all the time, as and they don't even consider it magic.
Yeah. Magic is at least when it's done, and there's a hole in the weeds conversation that I don't think belongs here, but even magic can be presented, especially currently, in a very reductionist, non-animist way, like an allopath. There is allopathic magic, right? I would say most of the books written on magic these days are incredibly reductionist, incredibly this herb, this color, this thing for this problem, cosmic cash machine, ching, right? It's very that. But I don't know where I was going with that. But, yes, we've been doing it forever. And magic, the magic to me, part of it is the acknowledgement that there is more than what we see. So it's taking the human exceptionalism out of the picture. We're acknowledging the fact that there are things happening in every space that are not for us, that are not about us, and that may not even be perceived by us. And, if you ever get the chance to read anything by Claude Lecoteau, talking about working with house spirits and spirits of place, that's the lesson that he's getting at, right? Like, it's not about you, it's about us. It's about the collective of space. Magic is the ritual aspect of animism. So it's the way that we take that experience of otherness and do something with it. And it can happen internally, it can happen externally, but all of these rituals that we see, whether we're studying traditional texts, like I like to be informed by Laknunga and Balds and Herbarium and all that, or if it's more simple than that, all of it is there to engage with otherness with the goal of creating harmony, right? So drink your tea, sew up your magical sachet. It's all going the same place, whatever feels right probably is right. That's why I tell people all the time, and whatever really opens that, kind of parts that hedge and connects you to the plants that we're trying to ally ourselves to, it's probably going to work, right? Very effective. It's very effective magic. This is why in modern sort of neo witchcraft and sort of eclectic and broad spectrum witchcraft traditions, people are obsessed with the concept of herb magic. It goes above and beyond the crystal gemstone magic, the sigil magic. Like there are all these other
Right.
people just keep coming back to herbs, and you can't even find spells that somehow don't include. There's always a put a
True.
pinch of cinnamon in it, right? Because it works. The plants are invested in harmony. They're invested in our success and our wellness. They understand our influence over the world, and they want us to be better and healthy and happy. So when we put the pinch of cinnamon in it, cinnamon shows up, right? Like
For
that's how it
sure.
is.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, that just makes me like well up a little bit just thinking about how like much the plants really do have our back and are invested in our well-being. And it's not, it's true. It's like they're literally like we're intertwined in this deep way and they are so supportive and even sometimes not even just putting a pinch of cinnamon in there is like what you need to do. Sometimes just calling in the cinnamon, just speaking cinnamon and asking that plant spirit to come forward is like enough. And yeah, I'm just thinking about like for listeners who are like, I really am ready to like help to drop that barrier, that wall that's been created. I'm ready to connect with plant spirit. I'm ready to call in the spirits of place. Like, what are some of the tangible ways that you have clients or friends or people that you know do that to work with the plant spirits? You mentioned sitting with the plant. So like what other ways are you thinking?
So there is one ritual, one action that I think is better than anything else that exists. And it's honestly 90% of my practice. And as much as we human folk can complicate things and make things so uncomplicated, we have to write a book that big, right? This is enough. And the cool thing about this ritual is it's something you're already doing, right? So that ritual is the ritual of respiration, that we are at every moment engaged in a ritual of sacred reciprocity with our plant kin, that with every inhalation, we are receiving their gifts, not only chemically of oxygen, right, which is a thing, but there's something symbolic about that as well, that our ability to inhale and bring in vital force, bring in space and bring in life is symbolic of everything the plants give. And then similarly, when we exhale, what is waste material to us, or what is the end result of a whole process of functionality inside of our bodies, the plants eagerly inhale in their own way, the little stomata and all that. So the breath is a powerful ritual of reciprocity that no one has to learn because we're all doing it. I'm not a big fan of forcing the breath, holding it, counting. You can do all that if you want, but just breathe. And if you can breathe in the presence of a plant, most people find that it's a little easier with trees because they're big and they have so many things that remind us that we both crawled out of that womb-like primordial ocean together, right? They've been keeping an eye on us since the beginning and watching all of our hijinks. You know, trees have arm and finger-like branches. They have flesh-like bark. They stand tall. The crowns sometimes look like feet, toes dug into the soil. So trees are easier for people, but go wherever. And we sit and we breathe. And the ritual literally is that with our exhalations, we choose in love and trust, right? The old occult axiom, in perfect love and perfect trust, to receive everything the plant wants to share with us. And obviously it's oxygen and it's terpenes and it's clean air and it's maybe fragrance and a sense of maybe some humidity and a sense of levity in space. But we're also choosing to receive all the other stuff, the wisdom, the inspiration, the downloads. I call them the cracks, right? When a plant comes in and kind of like cracks your bones a little and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
right? You get that little like, oh, okay. We're choosing in love and trust to sit with that plant through our inhalation and receive everything, to gather it up, to let it soak into the wholeness of our beings. and then to exhale vital force, love, gratitude, whatever feels good to you as an offering back to that tree, who soaks all of that up, does their little alchemical process, and sends out the next thing which we inhale. So it creates this infinity loop of reciprocity, right? And in my opinion, that's the path to becoming herbwise, that we're always in a space where the giving and the receiving are both happening simultaneously, openly, with love and trust, that we're willing to go to all the places our plant allies want to guide us, to the fun places and to the shadowy places too, right?
Mhm.
So that ritual in and of itself, very, very powerful. Just, I mean, people will kind of snark at me when I say, go sit with a tree and breathe. Oh, come on. It's got to be more complicated than that. It's not. We can complicate it all day long if you want. I will turn this into a 4-hour hands-on workshop if that's what you need. But it boils down to investing attention, listening from everywhere, sitting, slowing down to tree speed, trying to meet them halfway, and engaging, right? And just showing up. It's already happening. So that's the nice thing too, is everything in the human world has such a massive learning curve, right? You'll learn all these new things. You already know how to breathe. You know how to do it. You're probably a professional breather. So go put it to work, right?
Yeah.
And we put that breathing exercise, that breathing practice to work in our medicine crafting, in my tradition, in the way we do magic, the breath. It always comes back to the breath. Again, not forced. It's not breath work. It's
Mhm.
breathing, being breathed. Another thing that I think can be incredibly powerful, and I think about this especially in May and in November, as the hedge is particularly thin. Things are we're going through these transitional states. In
Mhm.
May, moving into the bright half of the year, in November, moving into the dark half of the year, that everybody has herbwise ancestors. Everybody. You might not know them. Your grandparents might not know them. They might, the closest one might have been 10 generations back, but it is not possible that coursing through the memory of your bones and your blood, there's not a little bit of someone in there you can stir up and call in. So this moves into the realm of ancestral work, right? Which I don't go super hard on, but I will say there's always a space at my altar for my herbwise ancestors, asking for their blessings, asking for them to stir up the cauldron of memory within me, and to offer them a bit of tea once a week, or if you are really proud of an herbal remedy that you make, offer a little bit to them. If you don't keep an altar, go make an offering at the base of a tree. Trees connect all places, all times, and all beings, right? Whatever is done at a tree is done at the center of the universe. So connecting with the herbwise ancestors is also a quickening technique that will superpower your connection to plants. It seems unrelated, but it's very related. And I would say a third option would be similar to the first, because it seems so simple that people overlook it, which is, shut up and drink tea. Just sit down and shut up and drink some tea, and just be, they just be, plants are quiet. So we have to be very quiet to hear them. They're very,
True.
very quiet.
I think that's the key, and what is hard for people too is like, yeah, we all are all breathing all the time. We drink every day. We drink liquid every day, but slowing down, being aware, being conscious, listening, being quiet, that's hard. It's hard for a lot of people, you know?
That is the hard, that actually, you're right. That is the hard part. The hard part is just getting the monkey mind to shut off.
Yeah.
And we have herbs that will help, that can help with that have those ability to see the ba 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 ba, and just say, let's just turn the volume down on that a little bit. But it
Yeah.
just comes with practice.
I'm thinking of verbena hastata, like blue vervain for that. What comes to mind
Vervain's
for you?
fantastic, especially people who find, and you can see it happen when I take folks out on herb walks, you'll see that the face will relax. And as the face relaxes, the shoulders rise. They put it somewhere else. And verbena is the plant to go to when people hold everything in the cervical vertebrae or kind of in that
Mm.
that kind of necky shoulder place. You'll just watch people melt.
The bottleneck. Yeah. Yeah.
Skull cap.
Another good one. Yes.
Western skull cap the skull, right? Quiet the mind. And all of our heart-centered allies, even ones that we think are limited to, trophorestoratives for the cardiovascular system or cardioprotective herbs that we think are limited to the physical, all have the ability to drop us into heart center, which naturally tells the brain, take your break, right?
Yeah.
We're going to think with a different thinking space now.
Yeah.
So those guys, like, close your eyes and point at a cardiovascular herb and bring them in, and they'll support
Right.
that, right?
Yeah. Hawthorne and motherwort and rose.
Linden,
Linden,
and
yeah.
Linden, partly because Linden is an accessible and bioregional herb where I live, has that special feature of being cardiovascular affinity, moves and drops directly into the heart, deeply nervine to the point of being a little hypnotic for some people, which is fantastic. And in the family Malvaceae. So in that softening,
Soothing.
like cooling, kind of getting things out of rigidity and getting things out of holding patterns and allowing them to soften and become more fluid. And one thing that I love about Linden for this kind of work, helping people drop into heart space so that they can experience plants, because that's where it happens, right? It happens in the heart, not the head, is I sort of lovingly call Linden Western cacao, right? They're very closely related. They're in the same family. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on between those two trees happening. Of course, Theobroma cacao is an equatorial tree, and Linden is everywhere pretty much, but there is overlap there. So when people think about cacao medicine and anandamide and raising oxytocin, Linden, right? Linden is our medicine for that in a way that is a lot less, footprinty on the world and all of that. So yeah.
I feel like linden is just such a friendly plant, a friendly tree,
Yeah.
It's like all parts of it, eating the leaves, the beautiful flowers, the smell. It's
Yep.
just such a friendly being,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. I didn't really realize that about the cacao too, the similarities, but that's a really good point. And
I love that connection.
yeah.
Yeah. It makes me think of Rosita Arvigo, someone we is an herbalist that we look up to and we've interviewed in the past. And Linden is the plant that brought her to her Mayan elder teacher because he came into the herb shop she was at in Belize looking for Linden because she was a Western herbalist and she had some and that started their relationship. So that's a whole other interesting story, but just that connection, that heart coherence, and the
Yeah.
connection of cacao is really
Linden
interesting.
is good medicine.
Yeah.
The softening of the heart is
Mhm.
always going to be helpful for everybody, right? That
Yeah.
we harden and we build up brick walls and we calcify and plaquify our heart centers, sometimes for good reason, right? The world is a scary place to be sometimes.
Mm.
But Linden, walking into the space of linden, under the canopy of a linden tree, especially a big one, right? We have 5 species of linden that grow crazy here that people farm, but the Atilia cordata, Atilia europaea, both really big species. And when you step into underneath the canopy of that tree, you are in this sort of torus, this sphere of protection and of energy and a sacred space where underneath you're being cradled by the root system and above you're being kind of protected and covered by the canopy of the tree. And it is when people get mindful before they take the step into that space, even for people who would call themselves completely non-intuitive, totally insensitive energetically, it is a vibe. right?
Yeah.
You are walking into otherness, and Linden just scoops you up and holds you. This is an example of a tree that I love to give folks Linden teas. I love to work with Linden and tons of formulas, but there's nothing better when we need the kind of medicine and magic that Linden offers us than to just go sit with Linden and just go hang out.
Hmm.
People feel it. This is like a gateway drug tree for me. Like, you take folks out, sit them under a Linden, do a little bit of, breathing, guided breathing, little heart-centered work. It's on. They're like, oh, there it is. Oh, heck yeah. Now I go do that with every other plant.
Yeah, if you can get them to sort of drop from their head into their heart and listen. Linden is such like a friendly tree to do that, because not all trees are friendly. Like, there's some that are more friendly than others. So Linden
Some
is
are very
good.
quiet. Some are, you
Yeah.
got to put a lot of work in to get
Some
any.
are pissed, some are mad, for good reason,
Yep.
Yeah.
Linden, though, always welcoming,
Hmm.
always sweet, and
Yeah.
as soft and loving and kind as that tree is, so much of the folklore around Linden is about protection in battle, right? About
Cool.
basswood, one of the names of Linden being such a light wood, being fantastic choice for making shields, right? Because they're not heavy, but when things impact them, the wood sort of collapses on itself and prevents damage. See the mythology around Sigurd, being protected by Linden until he wasn't, against the dragons, right? So even that name Linden, which they used to call the Linden worms, right, that is considered to be the favored abode of dragons. So there is this very powerful protective energy, but it comes through with all of the energy of, just like you said, like of a friend, right, of a dear friend. So it's a nice tree to go sit with,
Yeah.
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 especially the first couple weeks of June when they blossom, and
Oh,
love it or hate it, because people tend to be on one side of the Linden fence or the other with how that smell is for them. But
Oh, interesting.
I
Yeah.
guess
I
so,
love
but like,
yeah, I
I'm-
love
I love Linden
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you go by people's houses sometimes in the city, they're like blowing out this laundry detergent smell from their. It's like that's disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, if I had to choose one or the other, I'll take
Yeah.
Linden blossom, no problem.
For
No
sure.
problem.
Yeah.
Totally.
But yeah, that dropping from the head to the heart, I think that's an important thing too, because the heart is so important, and it's this organ of perception, and it's very sensitive. It's very, that's how you're able to perceive with it. But then it's all because it's so sensitive, it's easily damaged, it's easily hurt, and we need that protection. So,
Yeah.
but that I think that's one of the problems for a lot of people, or one of the obstacles for a lot of people in dropping into the heart or coming from the place of the heart, is that it's so scary. It's being vulnerable is a dangerous place.
Yeah, and we live in a world that affirms that for people constantly, that if you
Yeah.
see states of deep vulnerability or radical openness, whatever happens is going to happen, right? Which is a terrible thing. This is where I really love the story, and I love the medicine and the just the virtues, the blessings of not just rose, but all of the Rosaceae family. Any of these plants that, we have Rosa rugosa, Rosa canina, Rosa centifolia here, beautiful, unassuming roses, not the big, flower shop monsters that are pumped with formaldehyde and plasticines, regular old roses. These plants say, here's how you can be fragrant and soft and sweet and also take no shit, right? Like, to have delicacy and thorns that folklorically we learn the worst infections come from getting bit by a hawthorn thorn or a rose thorn, right? That they will get you if you don't, roses tell us that we have to approach with gentleness and intent and communication and say, here's the part of the plant I'm going to interact with, and I'm going to move around. They give us that medicine. They teach us how to not shut the heart center down, how to keep it open, but also how to ensure that people that approach that soft and sacred space do so with respect. And if they don't, they can have the thorns. I'm a big fan of giving people the thorns, like if that's the medicine
Mhm.
you need today, I will give it to you.
I will serve that.
Yeah, sure. So, we always think about rose sort of colloquially for the heart, for love.
Hmm.
But rose's medicine goes so much deeper. This is really about the mysteries, sub rosa, right? The things that happen under the rose bush and in secret, being protected and kept so that we can keep them, just like we want to keep our hearts soft and open. So
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Having those boundaries.
Very important.
almost,
Yeah.
Yeah.
almost
Hawthorne and
every
Rose.
time. Yeah.
So good teaching us that lesson, because that is the danger of being in the heart, is being manipulated, taken advantage of, attacked, to destroy. You have to have those thorns to have to be able to come from that place, or the lesson is you get tossed around.
Hmm.
Yeah. The berries too, raspberry.
Yeah, blackberry.
There, any of those with the canes, they
Yeah,
they will teach the same lesson of how to do both, how to be soft and vulnerable and also fiercely protected,
Right.
which I think is incredible. Let's put that in the water supply. Like that's good medicine, right? Everybody can take that.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. And then that rose too about how deep that power goes. I mean, like it does have such a deep lore in Western culture. Some people have said that the rose in Europe is like the lotus in India,
Mm,
and it has this similar depth and richness of traditional lore and mythic symbolism. Like the rosy cross, the
yeah.
Rosicrucians, like it's connected with Mary. It's like there's a lot. There's a lot of depth there with
Hmm.
Rose.
I probably know Western flower that has more street cred than Rose. Like just like everyone knows.
Yeah.
Everyone knows those Rose stories, and that's
Yeah.
a trap that people can fall into when they start engaging with the story of plants, which is the plant spirit expressing their virtues in symbolic way, right, to the human spirit. Is we think, oh, these plants that everybody knows, right? Rose and peppermint and chamomile, like everyone, those are basic plants. Those are beginner plants. No, no, no. Those are ubiquitous plants. Those are plants that everyone knows because everyone needs to know them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So I have encountered too many times in my 25 plus years of practice of people saying like, oh, chamomile is a starter herb. I'm very happy to shut those people down. Say, no, you will never find better allies than these plants that show up over and over and over again. And even when we have cultural or familial gaps in our connection to plants, somehow those plants jump the gap and make sure we don't forget them.
Totally.
They're the ones that will take care of you. We lean, most of the good herbalists I know lean on chamomile, peppermint, rosemary, sage,
Yep.
more than any of the cool, funky, exotic ones,
Yep.
and they're just outside. They're just out in the garden, just hanging out, being Lamiaceae family, being minty, wanting to be chatty and loud and engage our senses and show up in our food and our tea and our medicine and our art. No basic herbs.
They made it to that box in the grocery store tea shelf, so
Yeah, like
yeah.
wherever they're there, right? Like
Yeah.
those are the ones that are going to be there. It's not going
Yeah.
to be some other exotic. And the exotic ones are fun too, but
Yeah.
they're not going to be in the cute little packs in the grocery store for you to take
Mhm.
home. That's
Yep.
thyme, oregano, rosemary, sage, tarragon, dill. That's the mint family.
Mhm.
Always the mint family. Very, very wrapped up in human drama. Mint family watches us like we watch reality TV.
Oh my
They
God, you're so funny. Yeah.
they eat it up. They're like, what next? What next?
The lamb fam, just
And
like
what are we
moving
going to
in.
have to do to help you clean this up? Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Who are we gonna call in? Lemon Bomb? Melissa, you're up.
It's your turn. It's always
Yeah.
Lemon Balm's turn. Yeah.
Well, that it also gives me this image of like that meme where there's like the small brain and it's like, Oh, I just chamomile and mint. Then there's the bigger brain. It's like, oh, those are basic. And then there's the big brain. It's like, actually,
Chamomile mint.
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think that's, yeah, people, good for people to remember that
Yeah.
because the reason that they're so abundant and ubiquitous is because they're so powerful.
Mm. The
They
ones with these
save us.
stories we can't shake,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that means something. I mean, when we apply that same narrative to humans, when we have humans that have stories that we can't shake, that if you bring up anybody from history, that like everyone knows Napoleon Bonaparte's name, like who cares? But like we know him, there's something in the story for us, right? There's something, a
Mhm.
lesson or a medicine or an adjustment. So
Mm.
we don't want to shut them down. We want to cultivate them and love them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing too is that they're not just that powerful and important for us, but they want to help us too. Like they're the ones that are around. They're the ones that are friendly. There are plants maybe that aren't necessarily to be approached, but those plants are the ones that want to help us. So
Mm-hmm.
we should
Yeah.
be grateful for it.
Yeah, the homies.
I think, and I say this all the time, it's in both my books. When folks are just starting out, whether they're starting out coming to it from the angle of, medical herbalism, herbal medicine, or they're coming to it from the magical, occult botany, whatever. And we're trying to make that first point of contact. We're trying to make that first intent of allyship, of again, reaching through the hedge to find our first friend on the other side. I always tell people the best investment of your time will be in the direction of the mint family.
Mm.
Yeah,
They
that's
are the
right.
loudest, they are the chattiest, they are the ones who tend to communicate in a way that will hit your gut or your head a little more efficiently than some of these other ones that are like, we're going to speak plant and you can learn our language, which I appreciate. But mints are like, we'll rock you, we'll shake you up. Drink a cup of spearmint tea and tell me that you don't feel that presence, that space, the openness and the attunement that spearmint brings coursing through your body, right? Everyone will feel that. And of course, the physical end of that is the diaphoresis and the blood stimulation, right? But the
True.
energetic aspect of it is that spearmint moves through the body and finds collapse and kink and knot specifically for plant spirit work, right? And moves through and creates space where there's collapse and creates openness where there's, kink or not, so that our senses, both physical and subtle, are stimulated and refined enough that when we sit with these quieter plants, now we have the eyes to see, the ears to hear, right? Now suddenly the senses of spirit are like kicked back on, and spearmint does that. So we're giving like a lot of plants little like baby touches. I really like that.
I
We've
know,
been
me
all
too.
over the place.
I know, right?
No, that's perfect. Also, like I make like little reels out of these too, and that's kind of perfect for like little short videos. A lot of people just consume like consume the reels now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. The shorts are where it's at, and I hate doing them, so I'm terrible at it, but that is where it is. That is where
Yeah,
it is.
we're more long form, but Isaac's been good about breaking up the long form into shorts. So
That's awesome. I do think
yeah,
it's helpful. And if all we can do is encourage somebody to go smell some spearmint today, you
right?
Yeah.
did it. You did it.
Yeah.
That's the plant spirit path. You did it. Congratulations.
Yes. And I was just wondering if you had any stories, not, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but any stories of those like bone cracking moments where you like had a plant like knock you over the head with something that you realized, or maybe a story from a client or a friend that you want to share. Just love these like connection moments with plants.
Oh boy.
I know.
There's so many that it's like,
Yeah.
I want to choose one that, represents the plant well, but also, is an entertaining story.
Right.
I would have to say, and maybe I won't give specifics on this one
Yeah.
and more gloss, but I will have to say that time and time again, my biggest my biggest cracks from plants come from them mirroring or reflecting or giving me, I use the word ecstatic in its literal sense, like outside of myself, like seeing it from the outside in perspective of what I'm doing to get in my own way.
Yes.
So time and time again, I will sit with a plant. Maybe our online community, we're sitting with a particular plant for a month. You know, we do these monthly plant spirit sits, and I'm like, here, I'm going to go in and we're going to get close to this plant and it's going to be great. And day 3, day 4 in, suddenly I'm like, why is all of my stuff just right here?
Yeah,
You know?
totally.
So they do that in ways that is not only reflective, right? We can say, oh, I didn't even realize I was like running this thought or this pattern or this behavior. You know, I'm a huge fan of therapy. I love mental health care. Everyone should go get therapy or can. And therapy can do that too, right? That's like another adjunct modality that can support that. But one of the cool things that plants also do is that when they call us out on our shit, they also give us the medicine to fix it, right? So the plants who will reflect what you're doing out of harmony, out of flow, out of the state of love, and in the state of chaos are also the ones who will say, and here's how we're going to fix it. Here's how we're going to pave a path back from where you are now to your version of center, right? So that's really cool. And folks in clinic experience that a lot with pain patterns. When I work with folks, my clinical focus is on stress, anxiety, rest, and resilience, but I also like working with folks dealing with pain, chronic pain. And plants are fantastic as we sit with them, as we follow them, as they move through our body, as we draw them into certain parts of ourselves to ask for their guidance and for their planty perspective on what we're experiencing. Every single time, someone learns something about their pain. And that doesn't mean that the pain evaporates magically, but it means that now we're in a position of greater power. We have something we haven't had up until this point, which is a sense of control, right? And so the person says, oh, isn't it interesting that I'm having this, you know, somebody I worked with super recently, really sudden onset, kind of funky, can't be shown at the optometrist vision stuff. I'm having my eyes are focusing super slowly. Like like I feel like I have old people eyes, but the doctor's like, no, they look okay. Like not even bad enough for me to give you glasses, a prescription. And the plants, without me saying anything, because I don't want to get in their head, we work with a plant, a visionary plant, right? Someone like eyebright or juniper, or we have beautiful cottonwoods here that are the tallest trees here. So I like to bring that medicine in for people to get like bird's eye view perspective. And the person says, man, I'm not seeing things for what they are. I'm really trying to like avoid looking at the situation and seeing it for what it is. And I'm like, there you go. Right. And now they have that wisdom, and that wisdom is medicine, and whatever happens next happens next. But sometimes for people too, because those are big, grandiose, magical things, and we love when they happen. They're so cool. It's not always the norm, and it always shouldn't always be expected. Sometimes the crack is that people feel seen, that they get to sit with a plant and there's no bells and whistles, and they don't have anything profound come up. They would say on the surface, nothing happened, but that they feel held, they feel seen, and they feel part of in a way that they don't normally feel in their day-to-day. And it can be easier for us to discredit that and say like, oh, that was really relaxing. And it's like, well, let's unpack what it meant for you to be relaxed in that moment. And when people say like, oh, I just felt like I was, part of nature, in the flow of nature, I'm like, that's the medicine, right? You'd be back into that state of harmony, that state of ease, that state of being, of that state of part ofness, it can be that quiet. And so if that's all you can get, it's all you can coax out of your sit with a cup of tea every day, that's bigger medicine than people think. right? And it leads somewhere. So small things and
Very
big things.
Yeah, for sure. So tell me more about your online programs and classes that you do plant sits with and the green art. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I put out a ton of content all the time. I do a free class every single Friday on YouTube, on my YouTube channel.
Sweet.
Sometimes they're 15 minutes, sometimes they're an hour and a half. I talk about what I want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really important thing to me. I'm in my 4th year of doing that,
Oh
and
my
I'm going to
gosh.
continue doing it as long as I can. I've met some of the most incredible people through YouTube, and coming back to what you guys were talking about, Isaac's work with the stories and the reels. YouTube is a great platform for me because, like I said, I will do this all day. You got 10
Yeah.
hours, you want to do an 8-hour episode?
Yeah.
Challenge accepted. Let's do
Right.
it. So I get to find the people who are willing to invest 30 minutes, 45 minutes to really digging into one thing, really a topic, you know. So that's cool. So free classes every Friday, a super active Patreon group where every month we do a plant spirit sit with one plant spirit from new moon to new moon.
Mhm.
And that is supported with guided audio meditations, a monograph of magic and medicine that I write, some
cool.
rituals. Folks get to engage however they want and they share, and it's awesome. We do an advanced class every month. We do recurring, there's always a course happening. So I'm always kind of posting lessons right now. We're like 5 or 6 lessons into kind of a dorky course, but I'm like having so much fun with it, where I'm going through various entries of the Laknunga
Okay.
and reinterpreting them in the context of modern clinical herbalism.
Cool.
Saying like, okay, here are the plants that are called for in this charm or this formula. Here's my relation to those plants. Here's what I think. And then rating each one on a scale of 1 to 5 stars. Would I try or not? And
Okay,
most of
cool.
them are like a 2. So that's
Oh
been a
my
lot of
gosh. Wow, we love a
fun.
good plant nerd.
Yeah, like you gotta like get into it. So yeah, just tons of content, but like I said, tons of free stuff on YouTube, and I think that's a great place for people to get into it if they're interested in looking at it the way I talk about it. There are certainly other fantastic people, but I do it the way that I do it, and I like it to be accessible. So I'll always
Yeah.
put free content, and I do have premium content as well. For
So
free.
YouTube, you're the green art with an E at the end of art.
Yep, ARTE. I also have a 40-hour spiritual herbalism program that is online on demand. So you can take it whenever you want, teach you my energetic system of constitutional herbalism, which is based on the 4 elements of earth, air, fire, and water, as a way to assess disharmonies and
Uh-huh.
define healing protocols with plants. So that's a great program. And that one's on sale for May and June because I love May and June. So
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
And are
yeah.
you seeing clients right now? Or are you full?
I'm in full-time practice. Yeah. So I would say most of my clients I see in person here in the clinic. And
Mhm.
then I do have a virtual option as well. It's truncated. We do a little bit less, but it's still a great thing, and usually can get folks some solid, reliable guidance on working with plants.
So you're in your clinic space right now. It's such a beautiful space.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
Who
very
doesn't love a
lucky.
wall of herbs, you know?
I know, right? This is about all I work. I actually probably work with half of them consistently,
Mhm.
and 3 or 4 of them all the time.
Yeah.
In our clinic, I'm practice at Flow Acupuncture in Salt Lake City.
Oh,
We have 4 acupuncturists, one doctor of traditional Chinese medicine. We have a PT, and we have me.
oh, so it's like an integrative
Mhm.
health clinic with different practitioners. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Very supportive. Everybody here is super nerdy about herbs, and a couple of the acupuncturists also studied traditional Chinese herbalism in depth. So we will sit here and just go to geek world, every day
Mhm.
about plants,
Cool.
which is great. I also studied TCM, so there's some overlap there, but I work exclusively with bioregional plants in my practice. So
Oh, cool.
I'm interested in what those 3 plants are that you use every day with
Have to know.
everything. Yeah.
Well, it probably won't shock you to find out that Linden is one of them.
Hmm.
I have a very close relationship with Linden, and because my clinical focus is on stress, anxiety, worry, rumination, having these plants and mushrooms that speak to the way we hold stress in our bodies, especially in our heart centers, is very important. So Linden is there. One non-plant ally that I work with very heavily in my practices, of course, reishi mushroom,
I knew you were going to say
Ganoderma,
that. I knew
Ganoderma
you were.
lucidum, and we have the wild Ganoderma in Utah.
Oh yeah.
As yet to
Apple Autumn?
as yet to be named, as far as
Oh,
Oh,
what?
far
Are
as
you
like
serious?
newer, yeah, there's research happening at a local university, and they have gone back and forth between saying that it is in fact lucidum and then
Okay.
giving it any number of other names, and
Yeah.
they go back and forth. So we just say it's Utah reishi,
Oh
yeah.
my
whatever.
gosh.
Great.
That's
Nice.
so interesting.
Um,
We have the tsuge here a lot. We have a lot
we
of
get
It's
Suge
big.
as well.
Oh, cool.
And beautiful. They do really well here. It's kind of it's like so unexpected, right?
Yeah.
But we have a
Yeah.
lot of fruit trees here. So those little reishi babes are so happy to cling on to an apricot or some fruit.
Oh.
Oh my
They
gosh.
really-
We get them from our hemlocks
Yeah, that's
and
good.
nice.
the suge. Yeah. So I'm just interested to hear about that. And I remember Chris Hobbs was talking about like when he was in San Francisco, he saw a reishi on a tree that looked a lot like the lucidum, and it was like he couldn't quite identify it. So now it makes me wonder if it's like there is this other rogue reishi that is gonna be identified.
Well, I
I
think there's
think there's a
several.
few. I
There's
mean,
a
Yeah.
few, right? Like, yeah,
mushrooms and morphology, right? Their
yeah,
ability to quickly adapt and change morphology is what
true.
I think
Yeah.
about those beautiful lingxi, the Yeisheng lingxi that grow on Wudong in China that get the double spirals, right? That
Oh
like
my
don't
gosh, yes.
happen anywhere else.
Yes.
They just do, and like here they're more petite and they're very, very hard.
Mm,
Like all reishi is really tough, but these are like you actually have to like run them through a bandsaw to
Wow.
cut into them once they're dry. They're
okay.
tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they just adjust. So Linden, I would say,
Yeah.
is probably number one. I work a lot with Hawthorne as well. I would say Hawthorne's in my top five. I work with sage, Salvia officinalis, a ton, rosemary, tons, and juniper. We
Yeah.
have a juniper osteosperma, a high desert juniper here that is very, very important to my work. I would say juniper is like my closest plant spirit ally. It's the plant that teaches me the most. And I find ways creatively to bring juniper pretty much into everything I do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah.
Juniper is a great plant.
Like the plant, do you use the leaf and the berry, the needles
So
and
I
stuff?
will tincture the berries, but I rarely give them to anybody internally. Generally, my work with juniper in practice is more invocatory as a
Uh,
plant spirit familiar, but as a
Sure, yeah.
teacher and a protector, we smolder juniper here in the clinic,
Mm-hmm.
create safe space for folks.
Nice.
And I do like a traditional hyssop's water, which is a purifying, an Old English purifying spray or seining spray, but
Mm-hmm.
always add juniper, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
love
cool.
the junipers. We
Yeah,
have
me
so
too.
many here. Juniper, communis, and osteosperma, but osteosperma is babe here because they get super tall,
Sweet.
uh,
very
Cool.
stately and sort of command that you settle, right? They like that
Uh-huh.
energy. So
yeah,
Yeah.
we're an apple country. So the juniper and the apple here have a little bit of a rust between them.
Yeah.
There's a I think it's called juniper apple rust. Yeah. But there's not really juniper here. There's apple here.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
cool.
We've
It's a
got
little bit of a
the white
bummer.
cedar though, the
Mm-hmm.
thuja,
Yeah.
Nice.
which is
We have a lot of cedar, lots of pines,
Mm-hmm.
and that go wild, of course, and creosote and
oh
all
man,
Oh,
creosote.
creosote.
so many cool plants. And then in the city, yeah, I mean for where we live, we do have a pretty green city. So a lot of maple and linden, hawthorn,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
forsythia, lots of trees, lots of
Mm.
medicine.
Amazing. I want to there's more questions I want to ask you, but we can we do a little bit more? Or
Yeah,
you
I
want to
can
do that at the
do
end?
Like another 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
5, 10. Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, sweet.
So the what I was interested in too, which you mentioned talking about your how you use elements. And interesting in how from your study in the traditional Western herbalism, traditional Chinese medicine, what is your what is your elemental situation? How
Oh,
do you
look.
yeah, what does it look like? This is gonna
5 minutes?
5 minutes. Okay, never mind.
Okay, let's see what we can do. So I work with, well, at least started with a pretty standard hot, cold, wet, dry model.
Uh-huh.
And then sort of just naturally moved away from it and developed what I call a compass, which is partially informed by Welsh and British traditional witchcraft, which I don't practice, by the way. But there are these beautiful compasses of Erts in those traditions where they work with the four directions and various spirits and deities that are symbolized by those directions. And I was like, man, a compass in this context would be super cool because we're all, it's one thing to use energetic patterns, hot, cold, wet, dry, to define a disease state or a disharmonious state. And then on the other hand, we of course can use those same energetics, hot, cold, wet, dry, to define somebody's, prakriti, vikriti, their version of center where they like to be. But then what's the process of tracing the line from where I am now back to where I like to be, right? Of getting me out of the excessive heat or the fluid deficiency back into what feels good in my whole person, right? So I sort of started playing with that compass and then it just clicked in. And now it's it's like quite different from the humoral and the hot, cold, wet, dry in where I ascribe the elements or the energetics, sorry. And it just naturally took on the language of elements in my practice. So when I'm with a client, for example, obviously I'm listening for how they describe things, body posture. I do pulse, tongue, and face analysis. We do energetic analysis, a little bit of applied kinesiology as well in my practice. But when I reflect the information back to them, I use exclusively elemental language because I don't have to explain myself. When I talk about a condition being fiery or having a condition where the innate fire of the body, let's say the metabolic process, has moved beyond the confines of the fire pit and is now burning everything, people intuitively grasp that and say, yes, that's how this feels. When I talk about somebody's temperament being very earthy, very, wintry, very cold, very bear-like, they say, yeah, that's me. I'm a bear. I'm wintry people, right? So part of it was just creating space for clients and saying, like, what's a language that I can use that's intuitive for everyone, regardless of what their culture is, what their native language is. Like, we all just get it. We all just get what it means for something to be fluid, right? Or something to be fiery. So I like the elements more. And I also find that the elements open up. And maybe this is like the coolest thing I can share in just a few minutes. The elements, using an elemental language also gives us access to good adjunct therapies, right? So we can talk about going and gazing at a river and contemplating what flow and fluidity, effortless and ease look like in somebody who has an excess of air and they've become dry and rigid and brittle. So obviously there will be herbs, right? But how also can we engage the person with partiveness? How can we get them out into the world and feeling like the wisdom they need to get from the excessive dryness back to a state of fluidity is provided for them? And we can also use that elemental model to define formula and define format. So picking on that same person who has an excessive air condition, right? They're too airy. There's too much dryness. There's too much change and transformation. The mind isn't settling. The nervous system has a constant buzz in it. I'm going to give that person tea. tea is going to be the format for that person
Mm.
because A, it's in the form of water. And in my compass, water checks excess air,
Mm.
right? And B, this is like a side benefit with all of these things. The tea is going to force this person into ritual. It's going to force them to take the herbs that I give them and put it in the tea ball and boil the water and carefully pour the water and sit with the steam and follow a guided meditation if they will, and then sip on the tea, right? It like invites them into mindful ritual, which for people that are excessively airy, like yours truly, that feels incredible to just slow down and be in the moment, to get into the physical body a little bit. So that's what it looks like in practice. It's
Yeah.
not real complicated. It's quite intuitive. I only have the brain for it to be simple. So it's simple and
Yeah.
intuitive. And sometimes I can just ask people, earth, air, fire, and water, which one do you feel most at home with? And they're like, oh, I feel at home in water. I'm like, cool. Now we know where we're starting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Like an
Cool.
hour-long session, turn it into 5 minutes.
Yes. Love it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, cool system.
Well, yeah, so we could probably talk about this for 8 hours. Maybe we'll have to have you on the show again
Yeah.
soon and get more into more things.
Any last anything that you're looking forward to coming up that you want to make sure we share with listeners?
Well, I guess it depends on when this goes
I
live.
think next week.
Probably, yeah,
Okay,
a week
cool.
or two. Yeah.
I'm doing a class with Aeon, my book publisher, this month.
Sweet.
Just quickly looking. It will be on the 20th of May. And that you can watch online. And we'll be talking about the deep heart of herbalism. I'm going to talk about the heart as organ, as gland, and as liminal space within the place where plants speak to us and how we can engage the heart in our medicine receiving practices, taking your tea or tinctures every day, how to get the heart involved in that. Here in Salt Lake on the 25th, I'm doing my first herb walk of the season.
Nice.
And on the 11th of June, I'm starting a 3-part online course. It's 3 Wednesdays in a row on walking with the plant spirit familiar. We're going to begin with what familiarship is, how to open the path to familiarship, how to know if you already have one, how to cultivate the relationship, all the way through deeper sorcerous and ritualistic aspects of working with plant spirit familiars. So that starts on June 11th, and that's it. Tons of
Cool.
classes all the time. Tons of
Yeah. I love all the work that you're doing, and thank you for sharing all of your wisdom with us today and beyond with your classes and the YouTube channel and all of that. And
Yeah.
I would love to take a plant walk with you. So maybe if I ever
Come
fly
Salt
out to
Lake.
Salt Lake City, I'm gonna hit you up.
Yeah, come Salt Lake anytime, come out. We have a beautiful, beautiful classroom here, and we're nestled right up against the foothills. We've got just beautiful spaces all around us. So always happy to have folks come through and teach a class or just hang out. We've got bonfire and go for a walk. It's great.
Heck yeah. Awesome.
Well,
Well,
thank you, Josh.
thank you so much,
You bet,
Josh.
guys. Thank you so much. It was great to meet you and
Yeah,
chat.
great
And
meeting you.
let's do it again soon.
All right, enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye. See ya.